Welcome back to Covenant Financial Institute. Today, I want to speak to the part of you that feels like there is never enough money, never enough time, never enough opportunity, never enough margin, never enough peace. That feeling of not enough is what we call scarcity. And scarcity is more than a financial issue. It is a spiritual issue. It shapes how you think, how you react, how you trade, how you spend, how you save, and how you see yourself. For many people, scarcity is not just something they experience. It is something they inherited. It was passed down through family conversations, childhood pressure, financial trauma, emotional wounds, and repeated agreement with lack. And if you are a trader, scarcity can become especially dangerous because when you trade from scarcity, you stop seeing the market clearly. You start seeing it as a rescue plan. You start seeing it as a test of your worth. You start seeing it as the thing that must fix your life now. And that is how people begin to overtrade, revenge trade, chase losses, and sabotage themselves. Not because they are lazy, not because they are stupid, but because their money story is still being written by fear. Today, we are going to rewrite that story. The root of scarcity is not just low money. It is a low sense of safety. It is the inner belief that you are always one step away from losing everything. It is the feeling that if you do not grab now, you will miss out forever. It is the belief that your future is fragile, your supply is limited, and your margin is disappearing. That is not just a budgeting problem. That is a heart problem. That is why so many people can make more money and still feel poor. Because scarcity does not begin in the bank account. It begins in the soul. And when the soul is trapped in lack, it will interpret everything through lack. A small loss feels catastrophic. A missed trade feels like disaster. A quiet season feels like punishment. A delay feels like abandonment. That is what scarcity does. It turns temporary circumstances into permanent identity, but that identity is not from God. E.W. Kenyon taught that the believer must learn to live from the inside out. That means your inner agreement matters. What you confess matters. What you dwell on matters. What you repeatedly believe matters. If your inner agreement is there is never enough, then your life will keep moving in that direction. Not because God is cruel, but because you are living in agreement with lack instead of truth. Kenyon often emphasized that faith speaks what God says, not what fear says. And that is where the shift begins. You do not rewrite your money story by pretending nothing is wrong. You rewrite it by changing what you agree with. You stop agreeing with lack. You stop agreeing with shame. You stop agreeing with panic. You stop agreeing with urgency. And you begin agreeing with truth. Scarcity sounds like this. I have to make this back now. I cannot afford to miss this trade. I always end up behind. There is never enough. If I do not act fast, I lose my chance. I need this to work. I am always one loss away from disaster. That language may sound normal if you have lived with pressure for a long time. But it is not harmless. Those thoughts shape your nervous system. They shape your trading behavior. They shape how you respond to money. And they shape the identity you carry into every decision. A trader who speaks scarcity will trade scarcity. A trader who thinks scarcity will act in scarcity. A trader who believes scarcity will often create the very chaos they are trying to escape. Scarcity shows up in trading in very specific ways. It shows up as fear of missing out. It shows up as overtrading. It shows up as bigger position sizes than you planned. It shows up as not respecting your stop loss. It shows up as trying to recover quickly after a loss. It shows up as turning a strategy into a rescue mission. And once that happens, the trade is no longer just a trade. It becomes emotional survival. That is when discipline breaks. That is when clarity disappears. That is when trading becomes another way of trying to heal pain. But the market cannot heal your pain, it can only reveal it. So how do we rewrite the money story? Not just the numbers, not just the budget, not just the trading plan, the story. First, you must identify the old narrative. What have you been repeating? What did you hear growing up? What did your family believe about money? What did your environment teach you about enough? What messages did you absorb about success, wealth, debt, and safety? Maybe you heard, money is always stressful. Rich people are greedy. You have to work yourself to exhaustion to survive. We never get ahead. People like us do not build wealth. If I lose, I will never recover. Those are not just opinions. Those are storylines, and storylines become scripts. And scripts become behavior. Now here is the new narrative. I am not ruled by lack. I am not ruled by fear. I am not ruled by panic. I am not ruled by my past. I am not ruled by old family patterns. I am not ruled by emotional trading. I am led by wisdom. I am guided by peace. I am called to steward what God has given me. I do not need to trade from desperation. I do not need to chase what is not mine. I do not need to force what is not ready. I can wait. I can plan. I can obey. I can grow. I can build. I can be faithful. That is the story we are rewriting into your life. Here are 3 steps to begin breaking scarcity today. 1. Name the lie. Ask yourself, what do I believe when I feel financial pressure? Do I believe I am trapped? Do I believe I will never catch up? Do I believe I must force results? Do I believe I am behind forever? Write the lie down. You cannot heal what you refuse to name. Point 2. Replace it with truth. Speak what God says instead of what fear says. I am supplied. I am guided. I am not abandoned. My life is not controlled by lack. My future is not defined by my last loss. My peace is not dependent on the next trade. Point 3. Practice a new response. Scarcity reacts. Faith responds. Scarcity rushes. Faith waits. Scarcity grabs. Faith stewards. So when the pressure rises, do not immediately trade. Pause, breathe, pray, write, reset. That small pause can break a big cycle. I want you to speak this aloud. I break agreement with scarcity. I break agreement with fear. I break agreement with lack. I break agreement with panic. I am no longer ruled by old money stories. I am being renewed in my mind. I am becoming a wise steward. I am learning to trade in peace. I am learning to respond instead of react. I am learning to trust God's supply. I am learning to live from faith, not fear. My money story is being rewritten by truth. My identity is not lack. My identity is stewardship. My identity is peace. My identity is faith. Say it slowly. Say it daily. Say it until your heart begins to agree. This matters because a trader's results are often connected to the story they are telling themselves. If you believe you are behind, you will rush. If you believe you are unsafe, you will overreact. If you believe the market is your only rescue, you will destroy your discipline. If you believe your worth is tied to performance, you will trade emotionally. But when your story changes, your behavior begins to change. You stop trying to force outcomes. You stop using the market to solve identity pain. You stop living like a person who has won. Bad trade away from collapse. And you begin to trade like a steward. A steward is calm. A steward is responsible. A steward is patient. A steward protects what has been entrusted to them. That is the kind of trader you are becoming. For the next 30 days, I want you to do 3 things. Write down 1 scarcity belief each day. Replace it with 1 truth statement. Before every trade, ask, am I trading from peace or from pressure? If it is pressure, step back. If it is peace, proceed carefully and obey your plan. Because the goal is not only to make more money, the goal is to become the kind of person who can handle money well. That is the spiritual root of scarcity, and that is how you rewrite your money story. Before you go, comment this declaration. I am rewriting my money story in faith, peace, and stewardship, and come back tomorrow for the next episode. If this content blessed you, please subscribe, leave a comment, and like this video so more people can be encouraged.